The battered alien vessel drifted through Luna Station's docking bay like a wounded bird. Its once elegant hull was now a patchwork of scorch marks and twisted metal. Emergency crews rushed forward as the ship's failing engines finally gave out, leaving it to coast the final few meters on momentum alone. Ambassador Veltara stumbled from the airlock, her tall frame swaying with each step. Her crystalline skin, normally a brilliant blue-white, had dulled to the color of old ice. Deep cracks ran along her face and arms, where exhaustion had taken its toll. She clutched a datapad to her chest, as if it contained the last hope in the universe. The human guards at the security checkpoint barely had time to process her diplomatic credentials before she collapsed. 2 Marines caught her before she hit the floor, their faces showing concern, despite never having seen her species before. "Get me to your commander," she whispered, her voice like breaking glass. "Please. There isn't much time." Commander Jin looked up from his morning reports as the commotion reached his office. He was a compact man with graying hair and tired eyes, someone who had spent years managing the routine traffic of humanity's outermost station. Nothing in his experience had prepared him for the sight of an alien ambassador in such desperate condition. "The Reapers," Veltara gasped as they helped her into a chair. Her hands shook as she activated the datapad. "They came without warning. Our sensors detected nothing until they were already in our system." The holographic display filled Jin's office with images that made his stomach turn. Worlds stripped bare of all life, their surfaces carved away like meat from bone. Massive, mechanical creatures the size of mountains crawling across dead landscapes, consuming everything in their path. 17 worlds, she continued, tears streaming down her cracked features. My homeworld of Zentari had 12 billion souls. It took them 6 hours to harvest everything. The cities, the oceans, even the atmosphere. Nothing remains but bare rock. Jin studied each image carefully, his military training taking over. The destruction was unlike anything in human records. Entire star systems had been methodically stripped of resources, leaving behind empty husks, drifting in space. "Our fleets tried to fight them," Veltara said, her voice growing weaker. "We had warships, defensive platforms, everything we thought we needed. They swept through our forces like they were made of paper. Our most advanced weapons barely scratched their hulls." She leaned forward, grasping Jin's arm with surprising strength. "You have to understand, Commander. These creatures, these Reapers, they've been doing this for thousands of years. They move from system to system, consuming everything, leaving nothing behind. And now they're heading toward human space." Jin set down the datapad and looked at her with genuine sympathy. "Ambassador, I wish I could help you, but our defense fleet consists of maybe 24 patrol ships and a handful of destroyers. We're just one small species trying to survive out here like everyone else." Veltara's eyes, already dim with exhaustion, seemed to lose their last spark of hope. Veltara's trembling hands activated another hologram, this one showing a star map with red markers creeping steadily toward human territory. The advancing swarm looked like a plague spreading across the galaxy, consuming everything in its path. "They're coming here next," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Our tracking stations recorded their trajectory before they were destroyed. 6 months, maybe less, before they reach your outer colonies." Commander Jin's face remained perfectly calm as he studied the approaching threat, but beneath his desk, hidden from view, his fingers found a small panel that had never been used during his 5 years at Luna Station. He pressed a sequence of buttons, and somewhere deep in the station's communications array, a single coded pulse shot out across human space at faster than light speed. The message was simple, just a few numbers and letters that would mean nothing to most people. But to certain individuals scattered across hundreds of worlds, it was the signal they had been waiting for their entire lives. Commander Veltara pleaded, leaning forward in her chair. "Surely you must have something more than patrol ships." hidden weapons, secret fleets, anything that could help us fight these monsters. Jin stood slowly, walking to the large viewport that overlooked Luna Station's busy traffic lanes. Hundreds of ships moved through the space around them, just as they did every day. Cargo haulers, passenger transports, mining vessels, research ships. The normal flow of civilian life in human space. Perhaps, Jin replied, his tone carefully neutral. Tell me, Ambassador, how much do you really know about humanity? Veltara wiped her eyes and joined him at the window. We know you're a young species only recently reached the stars. Your government is peaceful, focused on trade and exploration. Your military is small, barely enough to defend your own systems. As she spoke, something caught her attention outside. A massive freight hauler that had been following a standard shipping lane suddenly changed course, with sharp, precise movements. Its trajectory shift was too clean, too perfect for a civilian vessel. Within moments, another cargo ship made an identical maneuver, then another. That's strange, she murmured, pressing closer to the viewport. Why are they moving like that? Jin watched the ships with interest, as if seeing something she couldn't understand. Like what, Ambassador? Like warships, she said slowly. Those course corrections, the formation spacing, the synchronized timing. That's military precision, not civilian shipping. More ships were changing direction now. What had seemed like random commercial traffic was transforming into organized groups, all moving with purpose toward specific coordinates. Even stranger, none of the captains seemed surprised or confused by these sudden course changes. Commander Jin, Veltara said, her voice growing suspicious. What exactly is happening out there? Jin turned away from the viewport and gave her a small smile. You said the Reapers are 6 months away? That gives us plenty of time to prepare. Prepare what? You just told me your fleet was small. I told you our defense fleet was small, Jin corrected. I never said that was all we had. Veltara felt a chill run through her crystalline frame as she realized that everything she thought she knew about humanity might be completely wrong. Deep in the asteroid belt, mining station Bravo 7 had been quietly extracting ore for 30 years. Its workers followed the same routine every day, drilling into space rocks and processing raw materials. Nothing about it seemed unusual to the occasional inspection teams that passed through. But when Commander Jin's coded signal reached the station, everything changed. The signal traveled through subspace networks that most humans didn't even know existed. It touched automated systems that had been waiting patiently for decades, sometimes centuries. Ancient programs stirred to life, running checks and diagnostics that hadn't been used since they were first installed. At mining station Bravos then, massive panels on what everyone thought was the main processing facility began to slide open. The structure started unfolding like some enormous mechanical flower, revealing layers upon layers of hidden construction bays. What had appeared to be a simple mining operation was actually a shipyard complex that could build vessels the size of small moons. Similar transformations were happening across human space. On remote planets, what looked like ordinary research stations opened up to reveal massive weapons manufacturing plants. Deep space monitoring posts shed their disguises to show advanced sensor arrays that could track objects across entire star systems. Captain Juan was enjoying his morning coffee aboard the cargo vessel Peaceful Trader when his personal communicator buzzed with the activation code. He had been waiting for this moment for 15 years, ever since he'd volunteered for the Ghost Fleet program. Well, ladies and gentlemen, he announced to his bridge crew with a grim smile, time to go to work. Around him, his crew members moved with sudden purpose. The woman who had been serving as the ship's cook reached under her console and pulled out a tactical officer's uniform. The maintenance worker who spent his days fixing broken equipment revealed himself to be a weapons specialist. Even the cheerful communications operator transformed before Veltara's eyes, her friendly demeanor replaced by military precision. Ma'am, The tactical officer, Na reported, her fingers dancing across controls that had been hidden beneath fake panels. All Ghost Fleet assets are responding. Project Erebus is live. We have confirmation from 47 sectors and counting. The peaceful trader itself began to change. External cargo pods detached to reveal weapon ports. The ship's hull shifted and reconfigured, extending additional armor plating and defensive systems. What had been a simple freight hauler was now clearly a warship designed to punch far above its weight class. Valterra pressed her face against the viewport, watching in stunned silence as similar transformations occurred throughout the traffic lanes around Luna Station. Dozens of civilian vessels were revealing their true nature, forming up into military formations with practiced efficiency. "This is impossible," she whispered. "Our intelligence networks monitored human space for decades. We would have detected military preparations on this scale." Captain Wan overheard her and chuckled. "Ambassador, you detected exactly what we wanted you to detect. Every species in the galaxy has been watching humanity's small defense fleet for years. None of you ever thought to look deeper. The true face of humanity was finally emerging from the shadows, and it was far more terrifying than any alien invasion force." Commander Jin gestured toward the massive viewscreen that dominated his office wall. As Valterra watched, the display lit up with thousands of new signals appearing across human space. Each blinking dot represented a ship, station, or installation that hadn't existed on any galactic registry just moments before. "You see, Ambassador," Jin explained calmly, "we learned something very important from our history. Earth taught us that the galaxy is a dangerous place, filled with predators who see kindness as weakness." The communication panel crackled to life with Admiral Wu's voice transmitted from somewhere deep in human space. "Erebus protocol confirmed, Commander. All sleeper assets are active across 237 systems. Ghost Fleet personnel have assumed combat positions. Deadliest fleet deployment begins in 36 hours. Valterra as crystalline." Features reflected the light from the tactical displays as more and more signatures appeared. Mining colonies were revealing themselves as fortress worlds. Trade stations transformed into naval bases. Even the small research outposts scattered throughout human territory showed massive energy signatures that could only come from military-grade weapons. "This is impossible," she stammered, her voice breaking with disbelief. "Our intelligence networks have been monitoring human space for 40 years. We have spies in your government, trade observers at every major port, diplomatic missions on dozens of your worlds. We would have detected military preparations on this scale." Jin's expression remained patient, almost sympathetic. "Your intelligence saw exactly what we wanted you to see, Ambassador. Nothing more, nothing less." He pressed a control, and the display zoomed in on a seemingly ordinary cargo route between Earth and the outer colonies. What had appeared to be simple freight traffic was now clearly a convoy of disguised warships, each one larger than Valterra's entire homeworld's defense fleet. "Every human ship that crosses your borders carries hidden weapons," Jin continued. "Every colony world you've visited has underground military installations. Every trade agreement we've signed included secret clauses for wartime resource allocation. Even our civilian population has been trained for military service since childhood." Valterra sank into her chair as the full scope of humanity's deception became clear. "You've been preparing for war this entire time. While you talked about peace and cooperation, you were building an army." "Not an army," Jin corrected. "We were building the capacity to end wars before they could truly begin. Every human ship, every colony, every trade route, every diplomatic mission, every cultural exchange program, all of it was designed for one single purpose." The Admiral's voice returned over the comm system with updated reports. "Commander, Deep Strike Groups 7 through 15 are moving to intercept positions. Planetary defense grids are coming online. All civilian populations have been relocated to secure bunkers. We estimate total fleet strength at 47,000 combat vessels, with another 100,000 support ships. Veltara's mind reeled at the numbers. 47,000 warships. Her entire species had never built more than a few hundred vessels in their entire history. What purpose? She whispered. Jin looked directly into her eyes. To make sure that when something like the Reapers appears, we're ready to protect not just ourselves, but every peaceful species in the galaxy, even if that means becoming the thing that others fear most. The first ship to emerge from the hidden base near Jupiter was so massive that Veltara initially mistook it for a small moon. The vessel stretched 4 kilometers in every direction, its dark hull covered in weapon ports that glowed with barely contained energy. As it cleared the concealment field, she could see entire cities built into its superstructure, complete with industrial complexes and defense towers. "That's impossible," she whispered, pressing her face against the viewport. No species has ever built ships that large. But the massive dreadnought was just the beginning. Behind it came dozens more vessels, each one larger than anything in the known galaxy. Some were shaped like enormous hammers, their front sections designed to smash through planetary defenses. Others resembled floating fortresses, bristling with so many weapons that they looked like metallic porcupines. Captain Ree stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Voidhammer, watching her battle group form up around her. The ship had been her home for 7 years, disguised as a deep space mining platform. Now, with its true form revealed, it commanded a strike force of 200 vessels that had been hidden throughout the outer system. "Admiral Yoon," she reported. "Over the secure channel, Deep Strike Group 7 is ready for deployment. All vessels report combat-ready status. Weapons are charged, shields are at maximum power." Through the communication feeds, Veltara could hear similar reports coming in from across human space. Battle groups numbering in the hundreds, each one commanded by officers who had spent decades preparing for this moment. Fleet after fleet emerged from hiding places that shouldn't have been able to exist. Some ships rose from beneath the surfaces of airless moons, their emergence creating massive craters where fake mining operations had concealed underground shipyards. Others detached themselves from asteroid clusters, revealing that entire asteroid fields had been hollowed out and converted into mobile fortresses. The most shocking revelation came when the gas giant Jupiter itself began to split open. What everyone had assumed was just atmospheric disturbance was actually a massive concealment system. From the planet's core emerged a shipyard the size of Earth's moon, disgorging vessels that made even the other dreadnoughts look small. Velt watched the assembly through tears that mixed awe with pure terror. Each ship that emerged represented technology and resources that her civilization couldn't have imagined. The smallest vessels in the human fleet were larger than her species' greatest battleships. "How long have you been preparing for this?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Admiral Yoon's image appeared on the main screen, transmitted from his command ship deep in the fleet formation. He was an older man with gray hair and steady eyes that had seen decades of careful planning come to fruition. "Since we first looked at the stars and realized we weren't alone," he replied simply. "Our ancestors knew that space was filled with dangers we couldn't imagine, so they made a decision to become the greatest danger of all." The assembly continued for hours, with more ships emerging from hiding places throughout human space, each one adding to a fleet that could reshape the galaxy itself. The command ship final answer was a floating city of steel and purpose. Its briefing room could have held 1,000 people, but today only 50 of humanity's most senior fleet commanders sat around the massive holographic table. The room hummed with quiet efficiency as displays showed real-time positions of every human vessel across 3 star systems. Admiral Kang stood at the head of the table, his weathered face showing no emotion as he addressed the assembled officers. He had spent 40 years preparing for this moment, and now that it had arrived, he seemed almost relieved. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the room's advanced audio systems. "Our doctrine is simple, and I Want everyone to understand it perfectly. We don't fight wars. We end them. The holographic display shifted to show weapon specifications that made Veltara's breath catch in her throat. Each human ship carried enough firepower to destroy entire planets. Not just damage them or conquer them, but completely erase them from existence. Every ship in our fleet carries planet-killing weapons, Kong continued matter-of-factly. Every Marine has been trained to think like a general. Every pilot can command a fleet. Every engineer can rebuild a civilization or tear one down. We don't believe in fair fights or gradual escalation. Captain Bo, a young woman who looked barely old enough to command a single vessel, raised her hand. Sir, what are our rules of engagement with the Reapers? Kong's expression didn't change. There are none, Captain. The Reapers showed no mercy to 17 civilizations. They harvested billions of innocent lives without hesitation. We will show them exactly the same courtesy they showed to others. Around the table, other commanders nodded in agreement. These weren't bloodthirsty warriors or violent extremists. They looked like ordinary people, teachers and shopkeepers, and office workers. But each one discussed the complete destruction of an enemy species with the same calm tone they might use to order lunch. Our strategy is total annihilation, Kong explained as the display showed tactical formations. When we engage the Reapers, we will not attempt to capture prisoners or salvage their technology. We will not offer them chances to surrender or negotiate. We will simply erase them from existence as efficiently as possible. Veltara shuddered at the matter-of-fact tone in which humanity discussed what amounted to genocide. In her culture, war was something to be avoided at all costs. Even when fighting for survival, her people had always tried to minimize casualties and preserve life whenever possible. But these humans spoke about complete annihilation as if it were just another military tactic. There was no anger in their voices, no hatred or desire for revenge. They discussed the destruction of an entire species with the same clinical precision a doctor might use when removing a cancer. Remember, Admiral Kong concluded, the galaxy is watching us. When this is over, every species out there needs to understand one simple truth. Humanity protects its friends and destroys its enemies completely. There will be no half measures. The briefing ended with quiet efficiency, leaving Veltara with the chilling realization that she was witnessing the awakening of the galaxy's ultimate predator. The Kepler 442 system had been home to a peaceful trading civilization just 3 days ago. Now it was nothing but stripped rock and floating debris, as the Reaper harvesting fleet methodically consumed everything of value. Massive mechanical creatures, each one the size of a skyscraper, crawled across the dead planet's surface like metallic locusts. The Reaper command ship hung in orbit, a twisted mass of black metal and glowing conduits that pulsed with stolen energy. For 1,000 years, these machines had swept through the galaxy unopposed. No species had ever offered meaningful resistance to their harvest operations. When the human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the system's edge, the Reapers barely acknowledged their presence. Long-range sensors detected only 50 vessels approaching, a laughably small force compared to their own hundreds of harvesting units. Admiral Ben stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the Reaper formation through tactical displays. The enemy ships moved in predictable patterns, showing no concern for the approaching human force. They didn't even bother to change course or raise additional defensive screens. Arrogant machines, he muttered, his voice carrying the cold satisfaction of a predator who had cornered his prey. They've never faced real opposition before. The Reapers continued their work, ignoring the humans completely. Their massive harvesting beams continued stripping resources from the dead planet below. Some of the smaller units actually turned their backs on the approaching fleet, confident that nothing could threaten their operations. Admiral, reported his tactical officer, enemy formation is maintaining standard harvest pattern. No defensive posture detected. They're treating us like another minor species to be swept aside. Admiral Bin's expression never changed. Perfect. Implement First Contact Protocol, Omega. Complete sterilization of all enemy forces. I want nothing left behind. The human ships spread into attack formation with mechanical precision. Each vessel locked onto multiple targets simultaneously, their advanced targeting systems calculating firing solutions that would ensure total destruction. The weapons that charged to full power had been designed specifically for this moment. All ships report ready, sir, came the calm voice of Captain Lee from the communications station. Fire. The engagement lasted exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. When the human fleet opened fire, space itself seemed to tear apart. Weapons that could crack planets focused their full power on the Reaper formation. The mechanical creatures, built to withstand conventional attacks, simply disintegrated under the overwhelming assault. The Reaper command ship lasted less than 30 seconds before it was completely vaporized. The harvesting units on the planet's surface were erased by orbital bombardment that left nothing but glass craters. When the weapons fire finally stopped, the entire enemy force had been reduced to atoms. Sir, reported Tactical Officer Yu, her voice filled with grim satisfaction. Quantum resonance confirmed. The enemy's death scream has been transmitted across subspace networks. Every Reaper facility in the galaxy just received the final moments of this harvesting force. Admiral Bin nodded approvingly. Good. Now they know what happens when they encounter humanity. Fear is our greatest weapon. Let them spread the word that the galaxy has new apex predators. The human war machine moved through Reaper territory like a force of nature, unstoppable and merciless. From his command ship, Inevitable, Admiral Day watched tactical displays that showed the systematic destruction of an enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for thousands of years. The operation was brutally efficient. Human battle groups appeared in Reaper-controlled systems without warning, delivered overwhelming firepower, and moved on to the next target. There was no negotiation, no pause for surrender, no mercy for an enemy that had shown none to countless civilizations. Sector 7, cleansed, reported Captain Soul from her position at the tactical station. Her voice was calm and professional, as if she were reading shipping manifests instead of announcing the complete destruction of an entire star system. All Reaper installations eliminated. No survivors detected. Minutes later, another report came in. Sector 12 cleansed. Enemy harvesting fleet destroyed. Colonial installations secured. The pattern continued across dozens of systems. Human forces would arrive, eliminate every trace of Reaper presence, and move on. They left behind only empty space where once mighty harvesting operations had stripped worlds bare. Sector 19, cleansed soul, continued. Admiral long-range sensors are detecting unusual movement patterns in the outer Reaper territories. Admiral Day leaned forward with interest. Explain, sir. The Reapers appear to be retreating. Multiple harvesting fleets are abandoning their operations and moving toward the galactic rim. Some are heading into the dark space between galaxies. For the first time in the campaign, Day allowed himself a small smile. The ancient machines that had consumed civilizations for millennia were running away. They had never encountered an enemy that could match their technological superiority, let alone surpass it completely. Admiral Mi joined the conversation from her own command ship, her image appearing on the main screen. Admiral Day, we're seeing similar retreat patterns across all fronts. The Reapers are abandoning established harvesting zones and fleeing into empty space. Valterra watched these reports with a mixture of awe and horror. The mechanical creatures that had destroyed her homeworld in hours were now experiencing something they had never known before. Genuine terror. For the first time in their existence, they were the prey instead of the predators. They're afraid, she whispered, hardly believing her own words. Admiral Mi turned to address her directly. Ambassador, you need to understand something about humanity. We've learned from our history that some threats cannot be reasoned with or contained. Sometimes, mercy is actually cruelty because it allows evil to continue existing. She gestured toward the tactical displays, showing Reaper forces fleeing in all directions. We don't fight to wound or discourage our enemies. We fight to end threats permanently. Complete elimination ensures they can never harm another innocent species. Belt realized she was witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. Humanity wasn't just defeating the Reapers. They were establishing themselves as the galaxy's new apex predator. Every species would soon understand that, while humans might appear peaceful, they possessed the capability and willingness to completely destroy any threat to galactic peace. The age of the Reapers was ending, and the age of humanity had begun. The war against the Reapers was over, but the human fleet did not pack up and return home like traditional military forces. Instead, the massive warships spread out across the galaxy, establishing permanent patrol routes that covered every major trade lane and inhabited system. Where once there had been empty space between civilizations, now there were human dreadnoughts standing watch. On Luna Station, Admiral Jin stood before a gathering of ambassadors from dozens of species. His promotion to Supreme Fleet Commander had come with the responsibility of reshaping galactic civilization itself. The other aliens looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and fear, uncertain what humanity's victory meant for their own futures. The threat is eliminated, Jin announced to the assembled delegates. Every Reaper installation has been destroyed. Their harvesting fleets have been driven beyond the galactic rim, but we're not finished. Valterra noticed how the other ambassadors shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They had all requested this meeting, hoping to thank humanity for saving them from destruction. But something in Jin's tone suggested this conversation would be more complicated than simple gratitude. Your people can rebuild under Terran protection, Jin continued, addressing Valterra directly. We'll provide security, technology, and resources to help restore what the Reapers destroyed. No species will threaten you again. The offer sounded generous, but Valterra had learned to listen carefully to human words. And the cost, Admiral? Jin's expression remained neutral, but his next words carried the weight of absolute authority. Except that humanity is now the galaxy's protector. We've decided that threats like the Reapers will never be allowed to rise again. Around the room, other ambassadors began to understand what this meant. The humans weren't offering temporary assistance or forming an alliance. They were announcing that they had appointed themselves as the galaxy's permanent guardians, whether other species wanted protection or not. What if a species prefers to remain independent? Asked Ambassador Decaron from the Outer Rim territories. Jin's answer was delivered with calm certainty. Independence is a luxury that leads to unprepared civilizations being consumed by predators. We won't allow that to happen again. The message was clear without being openly threatening. Species could choose to accept human protection willingly, or they could find themselves protected whether they wanted it or not. The alternative was being seen as a potential threat that might need to be eliminated across known space. The transformation was already beginning. Human patrol fleets established bases in strategic locations, always positioned to respond quickly to any disturbance. Trade routes that had been dangerous for centuries became completely safe under human oversight. Pirates and raiders simply disappeared, eliminated with the same efficient brutality that had destroyed the Reapers. The galaxy now understood its new reality. Humanity had revealed itself as the ultimate apex predator, capable of destroying civilizations that had seemed invincible. But they offered peace to those who accepted their protection, ensuring stability through the promise of overwhelming destruction for anyone who threatened it. The age of uncertainty was over. The age of human dominance had begun.